Welcome back to our channel on this beautiful day. We are thrilled to bring you the latest, most in-depth analysis of the gripping drama unfolding in Genoa City, where secrets never stay buried for long and family loyalties are constantly tested. Let us dive right into the heart-wrenching twists that are about to change the Winters family forever. The atmosphere in Genoa City has grown incredibly tense, thick with the kind of emotional gravity that only a true family crisis can bring. At the absolute center of this unfolding tragedy is the desperate fight for Malcolm Winter's life. Aplastic anemia is a terrifying, relentless condition, a silent thief that strips the body of its ability to produce the essential lifeblood needed to survive. For a man as vibrant, beloved, and historically significant as Malcolm, seeing him reduced to a fragile state in a sterile hospital bed is a visual that has shattered the hearts of everyone who loves him. The ticking clock echoing in the background of every conversation is not just a metaphor, it is a grim reality. Time is running out, and the desperate search for a viable bone marrow or organ donor has pushed the Winters family to the absolute brink of their emotional and psychological endurance. In the quiet, luxurious corners of the city, far removed from the sterile white walls of the hospital, Audra Charles is fighting a profound internal battle. Audra is a woman who has built her entire reputation on being a cold, calculating, and ruthlessly efficient corporate strategist. She is accustomed to navigating boardrooms, hostile takeovers, and complex financial webs with a steely gaze and an uncheckable demeanor. However, the current medical crisis involving Holden Novak has managed to completely pierce her meticulously crafted armor. Audra finds herself consumed by an overwhelming, suffocating anxiety regarding Holden's physical health and the terrifying prospect of him undergoing a major medical procedure. The thought of Holden stepping up to be a donor for Malcolm fills her with a paralyzing dread that she cannot simply strategize her way out of. Audra has been spending her late nights obsessively researching the potential risks and complications associated with severe organ and bone marrow donations. She reads about the potential for catastrophic surgical failures, the long-term chronic fatigue, the risk of severe infection, and the haunting possibility of irreversible nerve damage. For a woman who demands absolute control over her environment, the sheer unpredictability of human biology and surgical outcomes is deeply terrifying. She looks at Holden and sees a man who is incredibly vulnerable, a man who is willing to put his own life and future physical well-being on the line for a family that he barely knows. Audra is terrified that if the surgery fails, or if there are severe complications, Holden could be left with debilitating, life-altering sequelae. Her fear is not just about the medical procedure itself. It is a profound manifestation of her unexpected, deep-seated emotional attachment to him. She is terrified of losing the man he is now, terrified that this heroic sacrifice could leave him permanently broken. Meanwhile, Holden Novak is wrestling with his own massive internal demons. He is acutely aware of the monumental secret he carries, the undeniable biological fact that he is the son of Malcolm Winters and the half-brother of Lily Winters. This revelation is a heavy burden, but it is compounded by his deep-seated guilt over his past actions since arriving in Genoa City. Holden knows that his introduction to the local society has been less than stellar. He has made missteps, ruffled feathers, and engaged in behavior that he now deeply regrets. As he stands on the precipice of revealing his true identity to the legendary Winters family, he is paralyzed by the fear of their judgment. He looks at the legacy of Neil Winters, the tight-knit bond of Devon, Lily, and Nate, and he feels like an absolute outsider, a dark stain on their proud family tapestry. In a deeply emotional and highly charged conversation with his mother, Dr. Stephanie Simmons, Holden voices these crippling fears. He tells Stephanie that he is practically certain the Winters family will reject him outright. He envisions their cold stares, their suspicion, and their inevitable conclusion that he is nothing more than an opportunistic grifter trying to latch onto their wealth and legacy. He believes that his past actions in Genoa City have already poisoned the well, making any chance of genuine familial acceptance utterly impossible. Stephanie, driven by a fierce, overwhelming maternal instinct, immediately jumps into protective mode. She cannot bear to see her son in such profound emotional pain. She desperately offers to intervene, to use her historical connections and her professional standing to smooth things over with the Winters family before Holden has to face them. She wants to pave the way, to act as a shield against their potential wrath. However, in a moment of striking maturity and quiet resolve, Holden flatly refuses his mother's offer. He tells Stephanie that he must face the consequences of his own actions. He cannot hide behind his mother's skirts, nor can he rely on her to manipulate the narrative in his favor. Holden firmly believes that if there is to be any hope of a genuine connection with Lily or the rest of the family, it must be built on absolute truth and accountability. He tells Stephanie that it is better this way, that he must walk into the lion's den alone and accept whatever judgment they pass upon him. This decision marks a significant turning point for Holden, showcasing a depth of character and a willingness to embrace painful realities rather than orchestrate comfortable illusions. As Holden prepares for the inevitable confrontation, the intricate web of Genoa City connections continues to weave its complex patterns. Across town at the athletic club, a serendipitous and emotionally heavy encounter takes place. Nate Hastings, carrying the immense weight of his family's medical crisis and his own unresolved traumas, happens to bump into Dr. Stephanie Simmons. The initial greeting is polite, but the atmosphere quickly shifts when Stephanie reveals the depth of her historical knowledge. She speaks warmly of Nate's mother, the late, revered Dr. Olivia Winters. Hearing his mother's name from a woman who knew her well instantly disarms Nate, stripping away his usual guarded, professional exterior. Stephanie invites Nate to join her for dinner, and what begins as a casual catch-up rapidly descends into a profound and vulnerable exploration of Nate's deepest scars. During their dinner, Nate is genuinely taken aback by just how much Stephanie knows about the intimate details of his life. She is well aware that he is no longer practicing medicine, a fact that still carries a sharp, agonizing sting for the former prodigy surgeon. As the conversation deepens, the narrative touches upon a painful, reckoned piece of Genoa City history that continues to define Nate's current existence. Nate opens up about the devastating physical and emotional trauma he suffered at the hands of his own cousin, Devin Hamilton Winters. He recounts the bitter, explosive altercation that shattered his hand, causing irreversible nerve damage that permanently ended his ability to perform the delicate, life-saving surgeries he was born to do. The irony is thick and suffocating. Devin, the man who is currently standing as a pillar of the Winters family, is the very same man who violently stripped Nate of his life's greatest passion and purpose. Nate confesses to Stephanie that the loss of his surgical career is a ghost that haunts his every waking moment. He speaks with raw, unfiltered vulnerability about the agonizing struggle of losing patients, a burden he used to bear with the stoicism of a surgeon, but which now feels entirely overwhelming because he is stripped of his ability to physically intervene and save them. He is a healer who cannot heal, a savior with broken hands. Stephanie listens with a deep, empathetic medical and maternal understanding. She offers him comfort, validating his pain and acknowledging the profound grief that comes with losing one's identity. But just as a genuine bond of mutual respect begins to form between them, Stephanie drops an absolute bombshell that leaves Nate reeling. With a calm but heavy tone, she looks Nate directly in the eyes and reveals that Holden Novak is her son. The revelation hits Nate like a physical blow. His brilliant, analytical mind immediately begins to race, connecting the dots and processing the massive implications of this statement. He knows Holden. He knows the friction Holden has caused. And now, he realizes that this enigmatic young man is inextricably linked to the woman sitting across from him, a woman with deep historical ties to his own mother. The cognitive dissonance is staggering. Before Nate can fully interrogate Stephanie about the nuances of this revelation, his phone abruptly shatters the tension. It is an urgent, frantic summons from Lily Winters. She is calling an immediate, mandatory family meeting. The tone of her voice is enough to tell Nate that the world is about to shift on its axis. He hastily excuses himself, leaving Stephanie at the table, and rushes out into the night, his mind a chaotic whirlwind of medical trauma, family history, and the shocking new variable that is Holden Novak. When Nate arrives at Lily's residence, the atmosphere is suffocatingly tense. Devin is already there, his posture rigid, his expression a mask of deep concern mixed with his trademark protective intensity. Devin and Nate, despite their dark and violent history, immediately form a united front. They are the remaining patriarchs of the Winters legacy, the men tasked with protecting Lily at all costs. They can see that Lily is in a state of profound distress. She is pacing the floor, her eyes red-rimmed, her entire body trembling with the weight of the secret she is about to unleash. Devin steps forward, his voice gentle but firm, trying to offer her comfort. He assures her that whatever is happening, they will face it together. Nate echoes the sentiment, his medical mind trying to anticipate what horrific turn Malcolm's condition might have taken. But they are completely and utterly in the dark. They have no idea what is coming. Lily takes a deep, shuddering breath. She looks at the two men who have been her rocks, her tormentors, and her saviors throughout her life. The silence in the room is deafening, stretching out for what feels like an eternity. Finally, with a voice that cracks under the immense emotional strain, Lily shatters their reality. She tells them the truth. She reveals that Holden Novak, the man who has been hovering on the periphery of their lives, the man whose actions have been highly questionable, is not a stranger. He is her half-brother. He is the biological son of Malcolm Winters and Dr. Stephanie Simmons. The words hang in the air, heavy and explosive, fundamentally rewriting the history of the Winters family in a matter of seconds. The reaction from Devin and Nate is instantaneous and visceral. Absolute, unadulterated shock washes over their faces, quickly followed by a dark, surging wave of suspicion. Devin's protective instincts flare into a raging inferno. He is a man who has dealt with secret relatives, hidden agendas, and corporate espionage for years. His mind immediately jumps to the most cynical conclusion. He questions the timing, the motives, and the sheer audacity of this revelation. Why now? Why, when Malcolm is on his deathbed and the family is at its most vulnerable, does the secret heir suddenly materialize? Devin paces the room, his voice rising in anger and disbelief, demanding to know if this is some elaborate, sick con orchestrated by Stephanie Simmons to infiltrate the Winters empire. Nate, ever the analytical thinker despite his emotional turmoil, tries to process the chronological and biological logistics. His mind flashes back to his dinner with Stephanie just moments ago. She had told him Holden was her son, but she had conveniently omitted the fact that Malcolm was the father. Nate feels a sharp sting of betrayal, realizing that Stephanie had played him, assessing him while holding back the most critical piece of the puzzle. He joins Devon in his skepticism, his medical background making him demand absolute, irrefutable DNA proof before he will even entertain the idea of welcoming Holden into the fold. The two men barrage Lily with questions, their protective outrage creating a chaotic, overwhelming environment. They are desperately trying to shield Lily from what they perceive as a massive, dangerous manipulation. But Lily is not looking for their protection, she is looking for a miracle. Amidst the shouting and the frantic accusations, Lily's phone rings. The sharp, piercing sound cuts through the argument like a knife. The caller ID flashes the name of the hospital. The room instantly falls dead silent. The anger and suspicion evaporate, replaced by a cold, terrifying dread. Lily's hands shake violently as she answers the call. She cannot bear to have this conversation in front of Devon and Nate, the pressure of their intense gazes too much to handle. She holds up a finger, signaling for them to wait, and slowly steps out of the room, pulling the door shut behind her. The wait is agonizing. For Devon and Nate, the minutes stretch into hours. They stand in the living room, the echoes of their previous argument completely silenced by the terrifying reality of Malcolm's mortality. Devon stares at the closed door, his mind racing through worst-case scenarios. Nate rubs his damaged hand, a nervous habit that always surfaces when he feels entirely powerless to stop a tragedy. They are two powerful, wealthy men who can move mountains in the corporate world, but in this moment, they are utterly helpless, reduced to waiting for a phone call to dictate the fate of their family. The silence is broken only by the sound of their own shallow breathing, the tension wrapping around them like a suffocating vice. Finally, the door slowly creaks open, Lily steps back into the room, and the sight of her completely breaks the hearts of the two men standing before her. She is physically diminished, her shoulders slumped, her face pale and streaked with fresh, heavy tears. She looks as though the very life has been drained out of her. Devon rushes to her side, his arms wrapping around her in a desperate attempt to hold her together. Nate steps closer, his medical intuition already telling him that the news is catastrophic. Lily looks up at them, her eyes filled with a bottomless, agonizing despair. Her voice is barely a whisper when she delivers the final, crushing blow. She tells them that the hospital has completed the extensive genetic testing on the twins. Charlie and Maddie, the children she shares with Kane Ashby, the bright, hopeful young adults who were supposed to be the family's salvation, are not viable matches. The complex, unforgiving reality of human leukocyte antigen typing has failed them. The twins cannot donate their bone marrow to save their grandfather. The genetic lottery, which they had all prayed would fall in their favor, has turned up empty. The profound devastation of this news washes over the room, a heavy, suffocating blanket of grief that brings all three of them to a standstill. The realization of what this truly means begins to dawn on Devon and Nate with terrifying clarity. With the twins officially ruled out, the list of potential donors has been reduced to absolute zero. The massive, exhaustive search, the endless prayers, the desperate hopes they have all led to a dead end, except for one. The truth hits Devon and Nate like a freight train, completely recontextualizing the explosive argument they were having just moments before. The stranger they were just accusing of being a grifter, the man whose past they were ready to condemn, the secret half-brother whose very existence they viewed as a threat, is now the absolute center of their universe. Holden Novak is the last remaining option. He is the only person left on Earth who might possess the specific genetic markers required to save Malcolm Winter's life. The dramatic irony is staggering, a cruel twist of fate that leaves Devon and Nate entirely speechless. They realize that they must now swallow their pride, bury their deep-seated suspicions, and essentially beg the man they were ready to destroy to step forward and offer a piece of himself to a father he has never known. Lily's tears continue to fall, a silent testament to the impossible situation they are now trapped in. She is caught between her desperate, consuming love for her dying father and the terrifying reality of relying on a brother who is practically a stranger. A brother who is already convinced that this family will reject him. As the reality settles in, the complex web of emotions reaches a fever pitch. Audra's terrifying fears about the surgical complications Holden might face now seem prophetic, a dark cloud hovering over the only glimmer of hope the Winters family has left. Stephanie's desperate desire to protect her son is about to clash violently with the Winters family's desperate need to harvest his marrow to save their patriarch. And Holden, the man who feared rejection, is about to realize that he holds the absolute power of life and death over the very people he thought would cast him aside. The stage is set for a monumental emotional collision, a desperate race against time where past sins, hidden secrets, and the fragile bonds of biology will determine who lives and who dies in Genoa City. The Winters family will never be the same, and the coming days will test the limits of their love, their forgiveness, and their very humanity.